Hello everyone and welcome. Coming up is Shavuos, and it's just great to be back on camera and back speaking to you. And I have to tell you, I took a little break and I'm still kind of in a break, which is a funny thing, but here I am anyway. And before we get into it, I'm going to tell you that quick story because it has a couple of ins and outs, and whatever, I'll share them with you. This is a Megillat Ruth, and what we're doing today is we are going to go through the Megillah, and then we're going to pull out some lessons. And a lot of you may be very familiar with the Megillat Ruth, and you've heard the story 100 times, or Ruth, if that's more comfortable for you. But I always find that preparing for a Yom Tov, preparing for a holiday, just puts me right where I need to be. And the best way to do that for me, for Shavuos, is to do two things. First of all, to read Megillat Ruth straight up in the Hebrew, just like that, Hebrew English, and to read the Book of Our Heritage, talking about, or any book that talks about the giving of the Torah on Har Sinai, just what happened, just reliving it, just really getting into that space of getting the Torah again. And okay, start from the beginning. Tefillah to Hashem that this video should reach from my heart to your heart. And I'll take you back to last week when I went to my new favorite place, which is my garden, which doesn't actually belong to me, but is a really nice little arboretum around 7 minutes from my house, and where I've been spending a lot of time. And in that garden, I was doing my thing, whatever my thing is. And when I was, I was talking, I was singing to Hashem, whatever my thing is. And when I was there, it was Friday afternoon, and I was all set to do my Parsha video. And as I'm connecting and getting into a quiet space, I really hear this message like, don't make the video. Nope, you don't have to. Just go home. Just go home. Just be with your family. And I've been getting this message a lot lately, like kind of slow down, put the brakes on, since Pesach, put the brakes on. And ironically, the month of May is when I had tons going on. I had a retreat, I had coaching school, and I was blessed to be at the Kerav convention, Kerav, gotta say it right, and to do a lot of coaching there, pretty much like 25 hours straight, thank Hashem. So that was ironic, and I had been telling my children, like, guys, the month of May is crazy. I will be back in June. This doesn't work out well for children, just so you know. You can't just, do that. And so came Erev Shabbos, and it was the Shabbos after this whole run, and I went to make the Parsha video, and I'm like, no, it's not priority now. It's not important. Important is reconnecting. It's just been 2 weeks of craziness. Settle in. And I actually called up Yosef Davis, oh my gosh, my brain, Yosef Davis, the Torah Anytime people. And I told them I have to go inwards now. I can't be making a video. And then strangely, I felt very liberated, and it was very difficult. I felt like, okay, Hashem, Nasa v'nishma, like this is what you want me to do. I'm taking the message. I'm done. I'm done for now. And then I got the test, which I usually get, which is like a lot of people, a lot of different incidences that make me feel like, no, I need to be keeping on doing this. And then someone came to my door with roses, really roses. And she said to me, you don't have to take care of everyone. Now, this is a person who I care about very much, but see very infrequently. This was a really random roses giving, and she said, you do not have to take care of everyone. And she had tears in her eyes, and she came outside with me, and she started telling me basically, like, don't let yourself get away from yourself. Don't do that. It was so random. I said, you know what, you're a messenger from Hashem, you're telling me the truth, and I'm going to accept every word that you say. And so I did. And so it came today, and I'm in the Megillah, and I'm feeling moved to share it with you, and I'm also liking to share it with you. And then I'm back in my struggle of like, okay, Hashem, is this what you want? I don't want to struggle. I want to do what you want me to do. I don't want to struggle. Do you want me to only be doing dishes and cleaning the house and doing laundry? Okay, good, I'll do that. It's not easy for me, but if that's what you want me to do, that's what I'm going to do. And my daughter is home, and I tell her, I think I'm going to prepare the Megillah now. And then this thought comes into my head. I said, do you want to prepare it with me? And so I got to read through the whole Megillah together with her. And afterwards, she starts giving me tips for my shir. She says, oh, Mommy, are you preparing a shir? Show your people this book. This is a book of Megillat Ruth. She's so cute. She says, they're going to like the pictures. Show them the book. There you go. I'm showing you the book. And somehow, unbelievably, in paying attention and listening to Hashem of don't rush into doing anything right now outside of the home. Take your time, listen to the cues. He gave me the great gift, allowing me to share the whole Megillah with my daughter. We had a great time. And she was telling me to go give a shir. So instead of kind of moving away from her, this is a way of moving towards her. So I'm very, very happy and very grateful to be here with you right now. That's my intro. Okay, and actually the whole thing that we're going to be focusing on is Na'aseh V'Nishma, which is what the Jewish people said to Hashem when He offered us the Torah. We said we will do and we will listen. We're not going to ask why and what and how. We're just going to take your instructions, just like Avram did by Lech Lecha. That's what our people does. We take the instructions and we go. And I have so many stories to share with you about that. But first, I'm going to share with you the story of the Megillah, where all of this is rooted in. And just, if you've heard the story before, listen with new ears. Listen for some new kind of heroism. Because even though the Jewish calendar, we say, is a cycle in time, and we come back to the same place every year, just higher up on the spiral, we say that the Jewish calendar is not linear. We're actually revisiting the time of Na'aseh V'Nishma. We are higher now. Every year we get higher and higher. We get closer to the end of days. More and more truth is being revealed. And so I'm pretty confident that if we listen to the Megillah with new ears, we will hear something new. And most importantly, we will hear a piece of ourselves in the story, a piece of our struggle, and a piece of instruction for us and what we need to do. Now, the Megillah is not very long. It's just 4 chapters, and I'm going to read straight through it. So hang on with me, and let's begin. Okay. And for people who are not on Torah Anytime, if you don't know, if you want a Megillah but you don't have it, this is a really handy book. I just want to show you this. This is the 5 Megillahs. It's the book of Esther and the book of Lamentations and all kinds of things that you can get from Art Scroll. Okay. I'm going to loosely translate, not every single word. So it happened in the days when the judges judged, and there was a famine in the land, and a man went from Beis Lechem to sojourn in the fields of Moab. He and his wife and his 2 sons, and his name was Elimelech, his wife's name was Naomi, and his 2 sons were Machlon and Kilion. So this lovely family who was very wealthy was living in the land of Yehuda, which is Israel, and there was a famine, and they were worried that their provisions would run out, because if just they had money and they had food, but if they would share it with the whole city, they'd be as hungry as the whole city. So they decided to leave, and that was the wrong thing to do, obviously. By the way, not so obvious in real life. How much is self-preservation and how much is being there for the community? These things are very, very tricky, and honestly, the only way to know where do I need to be now? Do I need to be here for myself, or do I need to be here for my community? Is by doing Na'aseh V'Nishma, is by really, really, really listening, taking an action and listening. Is this the right thing to do? And I want to say that because the whole rest of the story is a story of Na'aseh V'Nishma, I want to make a little theory here that perhaps Elimelech had a chance to listen more deeply during the time that he was in Moab, and had a chance to listen to the voice of Hashem telling him, go back to your people, you don't belong here. But he didn't listen. And why do I say that? Because we know that there's a voice that comes down from the heavens for every person every day that says, return to yourself. And we have that opportunity, and so did he. But he didn't listen, and so he died. Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died. That was his punishment. And she was left with her 2 sons, and they married Moabite women. One was named Orpah, and the other was named Ruth. So they did not marry Jewish women. And they also died. Machlon and Kilion also died. And the women, both of them, did not have any children. And there was Naomi left with her 2 daughter-in-laws, Orpah and Ruth. She then arose with her daughter-in-laws to return from the fields of Moab, and she had heard that the famine ended. And so this is about 10 years later. So Naomi said to her two daughter-in-laws, "Go, return each of you to your mother's house. May Hashem deal kindly with you as you have dealt kindly with the dead and with me." And she gave them blessings on their way. And she said, "Return to your people." And they said, No, we're going to come with you." But Naomi said, "Turn back, my daughters. Why should you come with me?" And she started telling them, "What can I give you? I don't have any more sons. Even if I had sons and they would grow up, what would you do, marry them? No, go back to your families." And they cried, and Arpa kissed her mother-in-law, and she left. But Ruth clung to her, and Ruth said, "Don't urge me to go back. Where you go, I will go. Your people are my people. Your God is my God, and where you die, I will die. Nothing but death can separate me from you." And so, in that moment, she became a convert. She actually pledged her allegiance to the one and only God. And so they were together, and they were returning to Yehuda. I was going to say to Jerusalem. They returned to the land of Judah. And it came to pass, and when they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole city was tumultuous over them. And the woman said, "Could this be Naomi?" And she said, "Don't call Naomi, call me Mara, for Hashem has dealt very bitterly with me." And so it was, Naomi returned, and her daughter, and Ruth, her daughter-in-law, came with her. They came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. Now Naomi had a relative through her husband, and this was an important man in the community, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth, who was a Moabite, said to Naomi, "Let me go out to the field and glean among the ears of grain behind someone in whose eyes I shall find favor." "Go ahead, my daughter," she said to her. So a little bit of background. In the Torah, this may be familiar to you, but again, let's review. It's so important. In the Torah, there is a halacha that the people from Moab cannot convert. And so that Ruth was coming as a convert from the people of Moab, this was a cause of great possible controversy, and actually of controversy, because in those days they were still determining what the halacha was, and it was determined through this that this law only applies to the males from the people of Moab. Oh, my words today, not from the females. So Ruth becoming a convert was a thing of controversy. And it calls her Ruth HaMoaviyah many, many times here. And that kind of underscores what a tough place that she was coming from. And let's also understand that there is a concept in the Torah of the Redeemer, that if a man dies without any children, it's a mitzvah, positive commandment, for his closest relative to marry his wife so that they can have a child, and that child can be someone who his soul will live through. So Boaz was one of the people who was related, as we'll see. So he was one of the possible redeemers. So off she went. She came, and another halacha that you need to know, another little piece of background, is that in the Torah, there is a halacha that you have to leave the corners of your fields for poor people, and also, as the harvesters are harvesting, if any of the grains drop, they leave that for poor people to come. So there's like an automatic charity where poor people come and they work together with the harvesters and they take what they can. So every time it says she is gleaning from the field, that's what it's talking about. So off she went. She came and she gleaned in the field behind the harvesters, and her fate made her happen upon a parcel of land belonging to Boaz, who was in the family of Elimelech. Behold, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem, and he greeted the harvesters, and he says, "Hashem be with you, Hashem imachem." And they answered him, "Yivarechecha Hashem, may Hashem bless you." And then Boaz says to his servants, "To whom does that young woman belong? She's a Moabite girl. They wanted to put her down." The servant who was overseeing the harvesters replied, "The one that returned with Naomi from the fields of Moab." And she had said, "Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters." So she came, and she has been on her feet since the morning, and she's been gathering. But Boaz looked at Ruth, and he saw something very, very special in her. And he saw her modesty, and he said to her, "Listen, don't go in any other field and don't leave here. stay close. I've told these guys not to bother you. Stay close, and you can harvest from my field, and if you want to drink, go over there. There's something to drink. And afterwards, he even invited her into his house, that when all the harvesters, all his workmen were eating, he also gave her to eat. And she said, I don't understand. Why are you being so kind to me? This is very confusing to her. And by the time she came home, she had a lot of barley. She had an ephah of barley, and her mother-in-law saw her, and her mother-in-law said, What is this? Where were you? Who took notice of you? Who took care of you today when you went out to glean in the fields, just being a poor person, just collecting a little bit of food for the family, and she came home with an abundance? Who took care of you? And she said, a man by the name of Boaz. And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, I love these words. I'm going to say them in Hebrew. Baruch hu Hashem, asher lo azav chasto es hachayim ve'es hamesim. Blessed is he of Hashem, for not failing in his kindness to the living or the dead. Naomi, the bitter one, this was her first inkling of light. Things were so hard for her. Sometimes things are hard and you're in the dark, and the minute there was light, she was able to see it, and she said, blessed is Hashem, this is his kindness. And Naomi then said to her, he is one of our redeeming kinsmen. He is one of the people who may possibly marry you. And Ruth said, yeah, what's more, he even said to me, stay close to my workers. And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, Ruth, it is fine, my daughter, that you go out with his young woman. And so Naomi stayed close to Boaz and to the young woman to glean until the end of the barley harvest and the end of the wheat harvest, and she stayed at home with her mother-in-law. So when it says she stayed with her mother-in-law, Ruth actually surrendered and gave herself completely to whatever life was going to be after she converted. She surrendered herself completely to the bitter life of her mother-in-law, to the bitter life of collecting in the fields, of being a poor person, to the difficulty of staying with her mother-in-law, an old woman, no matter what. Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, my daughter, I must seek security for you that it may go well with you. We're on chapter 3, and there's 4 chapters, 4 prakim. Now Boaz, our relative with whose maidens you have been will be winnowing barley tonight on the threshing floor. Therefore bathe and anoint yourself, don your finery, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. So she told Ruth, go down to Boaz and lay on the edge of his bed and uncover his feet. And in doing so, give him a certain sign of the ceremony that is done when someone redeems or doesn't redeem the one that they're supposed to redeem. And remind him of his responsibility, that he is to marry you. And so this is what she did. She listened to her mother-in-law. It was a very strange thing to do, get dressed in your finery and just go at night to Boaz, to a man, and lie on the edge of his bed. This was the exact opposite of Ruth. She was noticed for her modesty, and here she was being told to do something so bizarre, but she listened and she trusted. And so Boaz woke up and he said to her, be blessed Hashem, of Hashem, my daughter. Oh no, he said to her, I'm getting ahead of myself. In the middle of the night, the man was startled, and he turned around, and there was a woman lying at his feet. Who are you? He asked, and she answered, I am your handmaiden Ruth. Spread your robe over your handmaiden, for you are a redeemer. And he said, be blessed of Hashem, my daughter. You have made your latest act of kindness greater than your first, and that you have not gone after the younger men, be they rich or poor. Boaz was very old. Some say he was 80 years old. And she came to him and she said, you are the Redeemer. Now, she was a young woman and a beautiful woman. She could have gone to anyone, but she did the right thing and she came to him. And he was very, very moved by this. And not only moved by this, but he took the musar, he took the rebuke that he needed to step up to his responsibilities. And he said to her, while it is true that I am a Redeemer, there is also another Redeemer closer than I. So stay here, and in the morning we'll figure this out. And so in the morning they went and they spoke to the other Redeemer. And that Redeemer said, no, I do not want to marry Ruth. I don't want to do that. And so Boaz married her. And all the people who were at the gate and the elders said, "We are a witness. May Hashem make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and like Leah, like our foremothers, both of whom built up the house of Israel." And so Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife, and he came to her, and Hashem let her conceive, and she bore a son. And the woman said to Naomi, "Blessed be Hashem, who has not left you without a redeemer today. May his name be famous in Israel." And so Ruth had a son, and that son had a son. Her son was named Oved. He had a son named Yishai. Yishai had a son named David. And David, as we know from his dynasty, came Mashiach himself, the Redeemer himself, who will come, God willing, in the future, in the very, very near future. So now that's a little bit of catching up on the story of Ruth. And there are so many lessons in here. It's such a raw and difficult story. It's not the big story of Esther in the palace, the big public story where the whole of the Jewish people was saved. And it's not the story of Eicha, it's not that Megillah where the whole of the Jewish people was suffering. Here we have the story of one individual who achieved redemption, who in her times it looked like a private struggle, a lone convert, following her mother-in-law, coming to the fields of Boaz, having to do this really bizarre thing of reminding him that he needs to marry her. Listening. At the end, having one child, and after she had this child, Boaz died. And so she also raised him as a single parent. And from her came Mashiach. I have to say hello to my neighbor. Hi, Karen. I can't. No. But if you want to say hello, come and say hello. You may say hello if you would like. And it's a totally different story. I'm sorry, I just realized that I just yelled in your face too. I like to not ignore the obvious, and the obvious is that my dear neighbor is like, she was dancing on her porch looking at me. So she'll come over here in just a minute. Okay, we'll wait for her. We're talking about Megillat Ruth over here. Megillat Ruth. Yeah. You have a favorite thing about Megillat Ruth? You want to come on video? Say hi, this is Karen.
Hello, everyone. Loyalty.
Say more.
Have to think on it.
I know.
Al regel echad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Loyalty that comes from the heart, that's deep-seated, that's very passionate, that isn't just, oh, I think it's the right thing to do, so I'm going to do it, but just knowing that, that to me is the theme, that loyalty, when it's right, obviously misplaced loyalty is not appropriate, but loyalty when it's true, when it comes from the heart, when it's really the right thing to do, and then sticking to that no matter what.
Yes, yep, that's what we're talking about. It's the Na'aseh v'nishma message. Na'aseh v'nishma message.
Absolutely.
That's it. You just got to do it, do what's right, and you'll find out later.
Okay.
And later's always good. Thanks for coming by.
You're welcome.
Do we have another visitor? Okay, come on in. We have another visitor in our video. I told you, my daughter, this was all her idea that I give you this class. Say hello.
Hello.
Did you like learning Megillat Ruth?
It was very interesting. Forgot all about it since last year.
Yeah, that's what happens to a lot of us. That's why we just repeated it.
Yeah.
Yes. Is there anything else you want to say before we continue? No pressure.
I hope that you get the best out of everything.
Amen. Amen. You gave a bracha? Yeah. But now don't be right here. Over there is better because you're very cute and then I can't concentrate. Okay. Yes. So we were talking about Ruth, who is a lone soldier, and that in our lone struggles, this is what brings Mashiach. And we always talk about, don't try to impress the neighbors, impress Hashem. That's what you need to impress. Those are the moves that you need to take. And that's really what she did. And that is what brings Mashiach. And you know what's so crazy? She didn't see the fruits of her labor in her lifetime. Well, she did. Actually, that's not true. She actually lived till a very, very old age, and she sat down, being the great-great-grandmother of Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, and sat next to him on a throne while he reigned. So actually, she did see the fruits of her labor in her lifetime, but it took a long time. It took a long time. She first had to have infertility. She first had to experience widowhood. She first had to experience poverty. She then had to experience widowhood again. At some point, I'm sure she lost her mother-in-law, Naomi, again. She had to experience being a stranger, being a foreigner, being unaccepted, being the source of controversy. She had to raise her child alone. All of this had to happen before the glory. And that's, I think, really where a lot of us are at right now, where it's all about our personal redemption. It's about understanding that your pain is the seed for your power. Your pain, your private pain is valuable. And your private greatness is valuable. It's not only the greatness of how are you leading and what are you doing in the world. These private steps that you take to overcome yourself, to grow, to understand that everything's Hashem, to be in faith when it's easy to be in bitterness. That is really the thing that creates greatness. And I want to tell you 3 stories now. And these 3 stories are in a little bit of a different theme, but I had been thinking about them before I started this video. And for some reason, and let me try to think of why, they really connected in my head to this Megillah. I find this Megillah to be specifically authentic. There's a specific rawness. Like if you would see a movie of Megillat Ruth, it would not have bright lights. It would not be very colorful. There's a lot of tragedy. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of aloneness. It's very raw. And the things that they say to one another are also very raw. You know, Naomi says to her daughter-in-law, like, go back to your life. I really have nothing to offer you. And Arpa actually listens. She just doesn't have the grit to stay with it. She just leaves. And then Ruth does have the grit to stay with it, but she came from aristocracy and she gave up all that. And she walked, it says that Naomi was barefoot when she came back to Beis Lechem. She walked back in poverty. There's no bright lights, there's no glory anywhere. And the language of the Megillah is all open and honest. Naomi saying, you should just go. And Arpa saying, okay, I will. And Ruth saying, no, I'm going to stay. And then Naomi coming back, and instead of hiding from everyone, she says, yes, folks, life has dealt me a bitter hand. Things are really, really bitter now. And then it just continues on, like at the end when Boaz says, whoa, you're right. I am the Redeemer. Thank you. You've done me a great favor by reminding me of my obligation. There's just so much openness. And I know I'm changing directions from my Nasa V'Nishma, because with all those adorable interruptions, my brain just went to somewhere else. And this is something else that I wanted to share with you. And it's very, very relevant to this. And I think very relevant to our Geula is this idea of just saying it, of just being with what's real. I think that a lot of the pain and the struggle, the actual struggle, pain you cannot avoid. That is part of what's going to build you, but struggle you can avoid. Struggle is when you're fighting against what is. And the antidote for that is to have emunah that what is really needs to be exactly as it is. And one of the ways that that's expressed is by just acknowledging it out loud. And I'll tell you a story. So this happened just a week ago, when I was at the Karatuni convention. So I met this woman, and she was very sweet. After I made a little speech, she said, come, sit at our table. They really like this topic of growth and authenticity and all this. And they said, we are so into this. We work with this organization with special needs kids, and our boss is the best. And she has just taught us so much. The way that we are with these kids, we really join with them. We don't just teach them, we actually join our hearts with them. And in doing so, these autistic children, they calm down. And it's just incredible what she has taught us. She's just the most amazing boss. And we're sitting with her at the table. Everything we learned is from her. She's so amazing, and we want you to sit with us. I was like, sure. Guess what? Even for a speaker, you're not always sure which table to sit at. So it was a total delight having a whole seat set aside for me. And I'm sitting there with these women, and I start talking to the boss, which is funny because everyone's the same age over here. Everyone is, I would guess, like in their upper 20s. So they're all, or maybe they're just really good looking and they're in their 30s. I don't know. But they're sitting at this table, and I'm in capacity as coach, and so I jump right in. She starts telling me that she doesn't know what to do. Maybe she's just going to have to close this center because her funder backed out, and now she has to fundraise, and she's really not a fundraiser. And to start fundraising, I don't know, and she's just going to have to close this center. And this is the most bizarre thing for me to hear, because here are her employees saying that this is the greatest thing that has ever happened to them and the greatest thing that has ever happened to these children, and they're offering something completely unique. And here's the boss saying like, yeah, I don't know if I could even keep open. It was just so strange. So I started to coach her right there at the table, and we kind of had an audience, and I was coaching her on what does she think she brings to the center. I just had a lot of questions for her to really think about. And afterwards we decided that this conversation was really important, and some things were coming up about the infrastructure of the employees and how they work together with the boss. I said, why don't we do group coaching? And that was my job there, was to coach people. So sometimes I was one-on-one. Sometimes during the weekend I just made some workshops. And at this point I took the 4 of them together and we did a group coaching. And as we are coaching and having this conversation, the women who are being individually coached are coming up with some real insights about themselves. And one of them starts saying, well, basically her conclusion is, I am not comfortable with the lack of boundaries in our employee infrastructure. I just think there's too much enmeshment in how we work with each other and the way that we conduct meetings, and it's not organized, and it's really making me uncomfortable. And the other one is doing some more soul searching, and what she comes up with is that actually she's not even sure that this is her calling. Now, this is crazy because they're telling this to their boss, and the tone in which they're speaking is all about self-discovery. And I am not needing to manage any tension at all. And I'm seeing that the one who is the employee who's saying, I don't even think that my heart is in this, is saying this to her boss. And there's no fear that she's going to be fired or reprimanded. And I'm just seeing that something is very strange here. So I say to them, hang on a minute. Something's strange. You're saying this in front of your boss. And your boss is also admitting her failings in front of you. And I'm not hearing any fear or tension. Please explain. Enlighten me. And they're like, yeah, that's what we do. We say everything. And so it turns out that the boss had, that a lot of her work is based out of a program called Options, which I have not attended. And they are proponents of this radical honesty, this radical authenticity. And I saw that when you do this, you take away sinas chinam. You can actually create a safe space where people can be people, everyone being different, not enmeshment, not criticism, just being who you are. And I watched this, and it happens that my daughter, she works for a school that, and the principal of this school is also a big Options fan. And so the way that she runs her school is with complete openness. And so my daughter said that, like, if her main teacher, she's only the assistant, but if her main teacher is not dealing with the kid right or something like that, instead of doing what people do in real life, which is go home and vent and speak Lashon Hara, unfortunately, she'll just say to the teacher, hey, I think, you're a little frustrated, why don't you take a minute aside, or whatever it is. And they say that to each other. They clear it up right there. There's actually no need for keeping things hidden. That's where the breakdown occurs, where you take what happens and you make a story out of it in your mind, and then you come back with a judgment, and none of this is ever spoken out, and before you know it, there's distance. And in that distance is struggle, because we have ego involved and we each feel alone. And then once you're feeling like the world is beating you up, then it becomes harder and harder to have emunah. It's really very linear. It's a tool for emunah when you just acknowledge that what is without any judgment. And so I took this upon myself when I realized, hey, I don't even have to go to options. I'm seeing this in real life. I'm getting what this looks like and how beautiful it is and how close it makes people, and how this kind of honesty, it really is a tool for geula. I'm not letting this go. I'm using this. And so I was working with a shidduch, and there was a young man in question, and this young man, he was speaking with me and my husband, and I had some reservations about him. And so instead of having some reservations about him and talking about it, I actually sat him down and I said, hey, can we talk? I would very much like to share with you what my reservations are about you. And then, I could be wrong. I'm open to being wrong, and I might be wrong, or this might be enlightening to you. So here are some things that I've observed. And so I sat with my husband and this young man, and we had a really important conversation. And some things that I said he agreed with, and some of them he disagreed with. A lot of them he disagreed with, actually, but it was okay. He actually was so grateful for the honest discussion that he felt really cleared up a lot of misconceptions about him, and he's going out with a girl. And he would not have gone out with a girl if we hadn't had that conversation, because I wouldn't have set him up, because I had all these reservations. And it just speaking it out without judgment, just here's what is, without apology either, and without trying to fix something behind someone's back, is so huge. I might have mentioned this before, but I have a huge pet peeve. Huge. I mean, I can't even tell you the amount of shrieks that go on in my living room on Shabbos when we read these from magazines, and they have these questions of what would you do? It's a series, and it's called What Would You Do? And in the What Would You Do, they tell stories pretty much of interpersonal complications where people find themselves in like, uh-oh, what should I do? And 10 times out of 10, it's just that people did not communicate honestly. That's the whole thing. It's like, hello, this is not such a secret. What should you do? It's not so complicated. The only reason that you have to dance around people's feelings is because you're coming at it from anger and judgment. You're coming at it from a sense of, I'm better than you, and therefore you can't speak up. But if you get off your high horse and you just realize there are people on people, there's a God, He's running the world, and He sent this situation for a reason, and let's see what we can do with it. And you open your mouth and you speak out what needs to be said. You have communication and you have intimacy, and you don't have articles that create crazy complications where there are none. I remember one complication was, what should I do? Oh, by the way, I'm getting a point right now. I just need to share this with you because my husband is also walking up to my yard now, and my temptation is to call him over, and I'm not doing it because I know that he hates to be put on the spot. And it only took me 22 years to learn that. But no, I will not call him over. Hi. So, there's like, what should I do? We got back the report that the child has Asperger's, but the school got the name wrong, and it was actually for my niece, not for my daughter, and they both have the same name. What would you do? Now we have this information. Well, what would you do is you would approach your brother or sister-in-law and say, hey, we got some really sensitive information. It might be a little disturbing to you that we saw this before you. We want to deliver this information. We want to let you know that we're here to talk about it if you want to talk about it. And if not, then you can totally have your privacy. It sounds so complicated. Just speak it out. But we don't do that. I had a really big and beautiful lesson just now because a friend of mine she has a lot of struggles, and money and no money makes the struggles even worse. And so even though she didn't call me about money, I just felt like if only I could give her some money, that would just be like such a little way to lighten her load. And so I called another friend, a woman who I met at one of my retreats, and I said, you know what, I'm going to call her Helene. I called Helene and I said, I saw that there was a special connection. I didn't call her, I WhatsApped her, that there was a special relationship between you and this woman. And you might not know this, but money is hard for her, and I think you may be in a position to help her, and can you help her? Well, then I spoke to her, and she told me that when I left her that message, she was in a big pickle because she had been very burnt by the Orthodox community. And in her mind, when she got that message, after I had only, known her for a little while, she started to think, who is Rivka Malka? She just wants to use me for my money. She doesn't really see me. She doesn't really like me. She doesn't really care about me. This is all she wants, and this is all anyone ever wanted, and this is all anyone ever sees me for. And she started making that story in her head. But in our retreats, we talk a lot about the stories and the struggles that we make for ourselves. And so she was willing to do her work of finding out what is her story and what is the truth. And so who did she call to share this story with? The very woman who I'm trying to raise money for. Because they do have a special connection. And so she said to her, I'm just going to make up a name. I'm going to call her Marla. She said to her, Marla, I have an issue. I don't know who else to talk to about it, so I'm going to talk to you. Rivka Malka called me to ask me to give money to you. And I'm in a pickle because I'm so angry about this. I feel like she's just using me. I feel like she's judging me. And I don't want to be mad at her. So what should I do? And so they went through the pies model. They went through understanding what is her story, what is her feeling, what does she really want to be seen and accepted and connected. And Miriam helped her to work through it and to understand that she was just in an old story, in an old pain of people who really didn't see her and only saw her for her money. And that's not what was going on now. And then she said to Miriam, I wanted to give you money. I knew already that you were having a hard time with money. That's why I hired you to coach me. She said to Marla, she said, that's why I hired you to coach me. And because I feel that I can benefit from you. And also you are going to be an amazing mentor for me, and I really want that. But even as I hired you as a mentor, I was aware that I would be helping you with money, and that made me very happy that we could have a very respectable friendship where we can be doing for each other. Oh my goodness. So in my old self, I would be like, what just happened? Now she knows, and she knows that we spoke about her, and what if she feels diminished in any way, and this should all be a great big secret? And this woman taught me something new. She was in with this radical honesty, with this openness. This is what is. This is actually what is. It is not a secret. One person has the finances to offer and so much else to offer. The other person has the mentorship to offer and so much else to offer. And here they are, they're working together and in complete authenticity now. No hidden agendas, no secret WhatsApps behind WhatsApps, just openness. And you can imagine that will blossom into a real friendship. There won't be any second guessing. There won't be any hidden agendas. There won't be any, I'm better than you, I'm saving you, you're less than me, you're more than me. There will simply be an honesty and an openness to what is Hashem giving us to work with. And that to me is just a whole new way of being. And I said to my friend, you always know I speak to Tzipora Harris a lot, I said to her, like, I'm doing this thing, I'm just saying things, I'm saying everything right now. I'm not holding back, nothing mean, nothing mean. From a place of non-judgment, from a place of this is what Hashem has, but not from a place of hiding or manipulating or apologizing, just this is what is. And she said, well, she always has this great outlook. She says, well, the world is coming to MS. A great truth is going to be revealed, and so we're all getting ready. So get ready for the truth. This is what is happening. And I think in Megillat Ruth, they were ready for the truth. I think that Ruth and Naomi were ready for the truth in a way that was spectacular, that was uncomfortable, that was bizarre. Every time I read the story of Ruth, it's so strange and difficult to understand her marrying an 80-year-old man and going to him at night and saying, you have to do this. But that is what is. I think I just ate a bug. Pardon me. Oh my gosh. I really hope not. Okay, this is probably the most bizarre video I've ever made, but I'm just going to keep with it. I really hope I didn't eat a bug. I'm not even sure. So, I think I'm going to go check on that. I think I'm going to end the video right here because there's so many distractions. I have so many things I want to share with you, and this is pretty much it for right now. And I daven to Hashem that you got what you needed to get, and if you didn't, you'll go open up a Megillah and you'll find more from it. I want to summarize the message over here. Message number one that is extremely important, and I could really sit on this message for days and days and days, is that Ruth personifies what it means to have personal redemption. Personal redemption is not cake and candy. It doesn't look easy. It is personal. It does not come with glory, but it does come with the real glory. And those who face that, those who are willing to take up that mantle, achieve real and true greatness. I'm going to make a recommendation for you right now. If you want to increase your emunah, and if you want to understand what a modern day Rus is, I want you to go to a blog named Rina Means Joy. I think it's Rina Means Joy .wordpress, RINA. And you'll read Rina's story there. But a year ago, Rina was in a hard enough place in life when she got the phone call that her son was throwing up. She was at a retreat, at one of my retreats, and she got a phone call that her son was throwing up. And when she came back, it was apparent that he needed to go to the hospital because he had massive internal bleeding in his stomach. And what she found out was that the man who she had been seeing actually beat him with a baseball bat, this little 2-year-old, causing these injuries. And not only that, but causing an entire case against her because she's the parent and this is the person that she was seeing that she had no idea. I mean, it was just crazy, crazy, bizarre story that you can read about there. And so not only was her son in the hospital, but for 6 weeks her children were taken away from her. And not only that, ongoing and ongoing and ongoing investigation and ongoing pain and struggle. And today it is 1 year later, and Rina is my dear friend and director of redemption activities, and she is the perfect person to be the director of redemption activities because she is redeeming herself. She is finding the sparks in this story of pain that are healing her not only from this, but from her whole life. And she is clinging to emunah no matter how bitter a person could get. And trust me, you can get very, very bitter when such a thing happens to your own child. And it's not fair. And then you can't even be there in the hospital to comfort your own child. It just is so much pain. It's unbelievable. But what's more unbelievable is the person who she has become today. And there's no great ending yet. There's no great story yet. The great story is the woman that she is becoming. And so I invite you to join her on her journey in Rina Means Joy. I think you'll really enjoy it. That's the first lesson in summary. The second is a lesson about Nasa V'Nishma. And Nasa V'Nishma is a lesson for our times. The lesson of our times is that we're at the end of days. Every person is experiencing a whole downpour of struggles, and this is exactly how it's meant to be. Rabbi Eliezer Brody just came to town, and he told of how all the souls said to Hashem, enough. We want this lifetime to be our final tikkun. This should be our final rectification. Lay it on, bring it on. Don't just take this suffering and bring it across many years. We want it now. We want to be finished. We want to be whole. We want the end of days to come. And so we've taken it upon ourselves. Our souls signed the contract that we want this suffering, and that's our that's our tikkun right now. Our tikkun is emuna, na'aseh v'nishma. This yontif couldn't be more personal for us. The most personal way to accept the Torah is to accept the very first commandment. Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher tzisicha me'eretz Mitzrayim. I am Hashem, your God, who took you out of Mitzrayim. I'm that one. I did it once and I will do it again. I know how to save you, and I'm the one who put you there. I am Hashem. To keep on understanding that no matter what happens, I am Hashem. And thirdly, to take with you as a tool towards Geula, a tool away from being in the story of victimhood and people are bad to you and people are mean to you, a story to bring us closer to one another, that is to embrace openness and honesty without judgment, to embrace the truth of whatever is the truth. Recently, I had to tell someone, listen, if we go on like this, in the way that you are acting, I will end up resenting you, and then this whole thing will be ruined, this whole friendship that we've built. And so, basically, I want to hold on to the friendship, and that means that there needs to be some changes to the relationship. And it wasn't even so hard to say, because I'm in this thing of like, just say the truth, and I said it without any strings attached. This just is what is. And that very day, tremendous miracles happened to this other person that made it possible for them to make the changes that they need to make. That very day, once we spoke out the truth of what was happening, instead of hiding behind being nice and hiding and skirting the issue and making excuses for other people and making excuses for yourself, just saying what is, from that point on, it's already turned. So I think it's time, I just think it's time. I think it's time that we get really, really authentic with one another and step forward into our light and into our truth. When I went to the Care of Tunic convention, my speech was very, very short. I said two main things. I had a lot of fun saying it. Two main things. The first thing was, I said, when you get together in a group, people get insecure. That's how people are. And there's this concept that I recently learned about one-upping and one-downing, where you try to find ways to get comfortable in a group, and so you start to think, am I better than them? Ooh, am I the prettiest one here? Oh no, am I the fattest one here? Am I the most religious one here? Do I fit in here? Who has more friends here? I don't. Just try to make all these configurations, and that's when we feel unsafe. So we try to assign some kind of superficial value to ourselves. Let's agree that we are going to make a safe space. And I want this for all of us, not only for a room in a convention, a room for all of us. Let's agree, and I'm telling you folks this now, let's agree, we all have problems. Yes, we all have problems. That's just the truth. It was really cute. The audience said, yes. I said, we're all beautiful. Yes. We're all working to bring Mashiach. Yes. And that's just the truth of the truth of the truth. And then I also said one other thing, and that was, I said we can have many, many beautiful speeches, but a beautiful speech without addressing what's real is like a piece of white bread on top of, and another piece of white bread in your sandwich with moldy cheese on the inside. So you're basically eating a moldy sandwich, no matter how good that white bread looks. You've got to get to what's real. You've got to get to the inside. And so that's what I'm here for, to help us get to the inside. So that possibility is available for all of us. And try it and watch your relationships change and come forward with compassion and with straightforwardness, and amazing things are going to happen. So I bless us all this Shavuos. I think every holiday we need an extra special blessing in all areas of relationship as we spend 4 straight days, night day together. We spend time together. We have family dynamics. We have expectations, and it's a very special time to be with Hashem, to be with the Yantif, and to be with the people that you love, and to work together towards Na'aseh v'nishma, towards openness, and towards our personal redemption. Thanks for joining me on this really kind of interrupted, bizarre video. It's a gorgeous day over here. I hope it's a gorgeous day by you, and I hope you have a beautiful Yantif. Bye-bye.